Three, two, one, and here we go. Gary, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you. Always have a blast talking to you. We always talk about some creative stuff, and it's just fun conversation.
I know. I like you are. When I first met you at our old job, I liked you right away. Yeah.
Oh, stop. You're making me blush.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's talk about some amp stuff. We were talking a little bit before we got started here, and I had to stop you because I was like, oh, this needs to be on the actual podcast.
No, you were playing me a recording you did, and I said, where did you record those guitars? And you said, right here in your apartment. And I was like, direct in? And you said, yeah. And then we both were talking about how that, is it called Amp Designer? Is that the plugin that comes with Logic?
I think it's called Amp Designer, yeah.
It's great. It's great.
It's the best. I mean, well, it's not the best, but it's right there. It's all,
nobody can tell in a mix what's going on. No.
If you told somebody that you had recorded that through an actual amp with a real microphone, they wouldn't question it.
Yeah, no, I was just telling you how I actually love and have a Fender Super Reverb, and they have a little model of a Fender Super Reverb on there that's pretty goddamn close. I mean, it's like 90% there. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm the feel maybe when you're playing, like when you're recording, it is just, I don't really think you can feel a difference. Maybe there's a little less give and take of your dynamics, but when everything else is going in the mix, there's no way. And I'm one of those people that when I slave over guitar tone, and then when I'm playing live in front of an audience, I'm like just going, well, I hope everybody's just really digging my tone and they can tell all these different things that I'm doing. They have no idea.
The guitar players would probably play.
Yeah, that's true. I usually do. I'm one of those obsessives who will watch the player the entire set and just feel like, what is he doing? How's he doing that? And then after the set, I'm the one that sneaks over and tries to find their pedal board. Take a picture of it.
Well, yeah. So when I use Amp Designer, I usually I like the fact that you can use any amp you want, any head you want, any cabinet you want, any microphone you want, and you can even adjust the microphone placement. So it's almost as good as the real thing. I'm sure there's a lot of haters out there that are gonna just be like, "There's no such thing. It's not as good as the real thing," but it's so close, and in a mix, nobody's gonna know. It sounds it's so good at emulating the real thing now. Technology is right there.
I wonder what the people that were just raised on, you know, I'm a little bit older, so like DAWs weren't like, I didn't really grow up with them. So I wonder guitar players that are now like, that have just lived in DAWs and maybe who do more like electronic work or such, and then they just plug in their guitar directly into the DAW, like, they're probably out there just going, fucking amplifier. Why would I need an amplifier? It's all right here in my little box on my desktop.
Right there. It's right there.
So there's probably a contingent of people out there who are just like, fucking amplifier. I don't need it.
Exactly. But when it does come to real amps, we were talking about some guitar techs and stuff because I work at a rehearsal studio, so I have to deal with guitar techs a lot as well as just keeping up with maintenance for the amplifiers. But you mentioned a guitar tech that you bring yours to.
Yeah, I'm blanking on his name. Really cool guy at Reamp is the name of the company. They used to be on Cahuenga. Now I think they're on Santa Monica Boulevard near Sunset Junction. And I just, whenever something goes with an amp or if I need some modification or a repair, I'll just take it to him because I don't want to get electrocuted. So and they're really great. He even taught me this thing. I'm gonna sound like a moron here, but with my my Super Reverb, I wanted it to just kind of like break up maybe a little bit sooner than it was breaking up, if that makes sense. So I read
tube distortion.
The tube distortion, yeah. The natural compression, all that stuff that comes out of it. So I asked, I kind of read some like sneaky little tricks you can pull on it. And I took it to Reamp, and I told the guy, I was like, hey, I read this thing online where if you remove one of the, maybe it's one of the power tubes or it's one of the, what are the other kind of tubes called? I'm blanking.
I
here.
actually don't know. I should know these things.
But if you remove one of them, it eliminates channel 1 completely. Like it bypasses it. Like you can't plug into channel 1. You can only plug into channel 2.
Oh, right.
And it brings down the headroom kind of a tad bit. So like I was able to find that sweet spot where it's kind of breaking up a little bit, maybe sooner without getting as loud, and it just felt, I don't know what it was. It just felt so much better. I only use channel 2 anyway because that's the one with the reverb and the trem. I don't know who would bother.
So what it's probably doing then is it's probably just pushing that tube harder sooner because it's not.
There's another one not taking any of the brunt of it. It's all getting pushed onto other ones. Maybe. Right. Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know.
Well,
really,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Though.
Really cool guy and really sweet. And I just, like I said, I'd love to get in there and learn how to repair amplifiers, but I would be the guy who just electrocutes himself to death repairing his own guitar amp.
I don't know. Maybe he needs an extra hand or something. You know, that would be a fun person to apprentice with or something. You know? I would learn a lot from
Every
that guy.
day is life or death at Reamp.
Yeah.
If you're listening, Reamp, my name's Gary Schaaf. I've been in there a few times. You guys are great.
We'll tag you.
Yeah.
Also, so my amp tech guy that I go to is I used to go to Advanced Musical Electronics on Venice. It's by like Culver City. It's pretty far from here. We're kind of over in the valley, and it's a little bit of a hike, but they have a lot of history and they're really good. There's a little bit of a waiting. I think there's like about a 2-week waiting period or whatever. Yeah. If you want to rush it, I think it was like $50 or something that. If you want to rush it,
skip the line.
But lately, I've been using Eduardo Reyes, Mike, the singer of my band Dream Clinic. I think it's his cousin, or they're somehow related. I should know this too. But Eduardo, he's been doing great work with me the past probably month or two or whatever, and he's repaired a bunch of amps. They've been great. And also very interesting, I'm sure you'll be interested in this, he makes pedals.
Oh, hell yeah.
So he's been designing his own pedals, and shout out to ECR Electronics. And actually I got one here. Let me pull it up. Hang on. Take it off my pedal board.
Oh, is that's the Dumbloid?
Yeah, it's the Dumbloid replica. The Dumbloid replica. And or a clone or whatever you want to call it. This thing is great though. It sounds like tube distortion and stuff.
I love those knobs. Yeah, I think I was telling you the last time, I'm 99% sure that's based off of those $25,000 Dumble amplifiers that are pretty famous.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Like John Mayer. I don't really know much about John Mayer other than he's a great guitar player.
He's one of the few people that have 25 grand
to dump on a giant fucking stack. And to some degree, I mean, I'm probably way off base here. They can be kind of Fender-esque almost, but there's some other kind of EQ curve on them or something that's a little different.
I don't know if I showed that to the camera. There we go. Yeah. It's pretty. I like the dials on this.
Oh, those dials are great. Yeah.
It's old school. It's like old school radio look.
Does he mostly do gain pedals?
He does a few. I know he just did a tremolo for Mike.
Oh, cool.
I think he did a chorus pedal. He's got a few other. I know he's got a bunch for sale up on Reverb, and they're really good prices and they sound really good. You should go check them out.
Nice.
And also he does modifications and stuff. So if you have a pedal and you have a specific mod in mind, he's like open to doing some mods. And he's great. He's just super nice guy. I'm gonna try and have him on here in a couple weeks actually.
Nice.
And so he's good. As far as pedals go, let's jump down this rabbit hole.
This is what I love.
Yeah. What are okay? As far as a type of pedal, like reverb, delay, distortion, or whatever, like what is your? If you had to choose one, would it be like?
Shit.
This is a tough question.
It really is. This is like saying Fender or Gibson. It's just kind of like
okay, maybe.
Well,
not
I would say Fender.
What are some of your favorites and why?
Well, no, I can answer your question. At the end of the day, my preferred playing tends to be a little bit more cleaner, but I always feel like I have to use some kind of gain pedal within that clean sound itself. Like very often, very few times am I just getting just the amp distortion or whatever like that.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that though, it's not a gain pedal. It's probably delay or reverb. I'm addicted. I'm hooked. And anything under the sun, you name it, I've owned it at one point. Seriously. But like my favorite delay pedal of all time is probably just that Strymon El Capistan. Do you know that one?
Yeah.
It's a tape delay emulator, and it's just, there's a million sounds in that box, and it's just, I don't know how they dreamt it up, but nobody's come close in my mind. Even the El Capistan setting on their timeline isn't quite whatever the El Cap is, and I've like A-B'd them, and I was like, why is that one? There's something going on there that's a little bit juicier.
It's really smooth. What I liked about it is it really does a good job of the tape emulation.
Yeah.
Like you can, because when you do the delay, so I have a Boss, was it DD20?
Oh, that's great too.
They're great, but if you are adjusting the delay time on the fly, it's segmented by 10 milliseconds, so you hear go.
Right, you don't hear a smooth
right. So the tape delays are the ones that like emulate that the best, and that one I really loved because it was super smooth. It sounds like a real tape delay, like how you can adjust it.
I hate to say this, I've never actually played through an actual tape delay box.
The Space Echo, you ever
I've
used
never
one?
played through. I played through the Boss's RE20, not the RE201, which is the actual one.
Yeah.
And I really like that Boss pedal. I thought it was great, but one thing I thought it was missing, and I don't even think the RE201 has this on it, but just the modulation. Like the pedal itself didn't have modulation. So there was you'd play and there'd be this great kind of warm sounding repeats that could sound wonderful, but there was never any of that kind of like slight chorusy or vibrato effect that you can get on a lot of them.
Right.
And the El Cap but other just actual tape machines, that's just like a natural occurrence, that kind of just a little ghost in the machine that just kind of pops out anyway. And that was the thing that that was the one thing it was missing to me, that RE20, that it just didn't have. That I love modulation on the repeats of delay pedals.
This one has some that you can kind of go like reprogram it a little bit, and it's got some that are in there that you can do some modulation where it does like a little bit of like pitch mod, just like up and down, just because of like what it's emulating is the older ones that you're mentioning that have a little ghost in the machine or whatever, and it's just it was modulation in the actual tape speed while it was going, so it's probably comes from like when motors were starting to go and those little.
Well, that's the thing about the El Capistan that's great. There's you have the knobs, but then there's secondary features on them, like you hold down on the tap and the bypass foot switch, and the knobs change their function. And there's like one called the low end contour, where you can shape the low end if you want it heavier and a little fatter, or just like tinier and tinier and just fading away sharply kind of. And then there's a bias one and a crinkle one, and those are two where it's kind of brings up like old tape will just start kind of, it gets worn down and it gets stretched and a little, and it just creates these weird irregularities that aren't like to a boom tempo, like they're just a
it's a little bit more random.
Yeah, a little random little hiccups that pop up that are really cool in it. But the modulation, it's just one knob. It just says wow and flutter, but within that, whatever that radius of spinning it, you can get so many different, from just minor little chorusy, like hint of chorus, like whatever like the Edge does or whatever on his repeats. But then you can crank it and it's wild, but it's still musical. It's not just a gimmick for a gimmick's sake. Like it really can fit into a mix and just kind of make it sound even more not of this earth, kind of. And it's just, I just love delay pedals with modulation. Just, make it play like a C major 7 and just strum it and just, and you're just kind of floating. whatever heaven.
I agree. I think I would have to say that's probably a delay. I don't know what kind, but a delay would probably have to be my desert island too. Because if you have a long enough delay too, you can do loops and just have fun time with it.
I suck at looping.
It just takes a little practice getting the timing.
Yeah,
just to the start and stop of the timing. But it's once you start getting it and start making some layers. I actually had an old. How I started looping was that I had an old. One of the first pedals that I had when I was in New York was a Digitech.
Jam Man?
No, it was a Digitech. It was multi-effects pedal.
Okay.
Right, and it was just had two. It was like one big piece of metal, and I'm spacing on the name of it right now. Yeah. It was one big piece of metal, and it had two pedals on it, so like you can make it go left and right to your different presets.
Oh, okay.
And it was like stored up to 99 of them.
Oh, just up and down kind of.
Yeah. And then one to turn it on and off.
Mm-hmm.
So it was 3 pedals, I guess, on the bottom of it. Anyway, if you go under the hood and you're making a new sound inside the pedal, then you can go to the delay time and make it unlimited. And if you you set it at 99 and you can play on it and it'll play but the longest delay time was 500 milliseconds or whatever. So I think, or 5,000. I think it was, so it was 5 seconds. It was a 5-second loop, but I would have to time it perfectly. I couldn't start it and stop it with the pedal. So I would mess it up and have to redo it a million times. But then if I take the amount of feedback or whatever and go from 99 to unlimited, then I can play over the top of it. Right, and it won't be in the delay. So that was like my first little glimpse at like doing loops and stuff, and I did that forever.
I had that. I mean, it's famous now. It's been around for, I want to say it's getting up close to 20 years, but that Line 6 DL4, that green one.
Classic.
Like everybody and their mothers had that pedal. Like I got it and I was super psyched at the time. But I almost never use it for the looping. I was just bad at it. I'm one of those idiots that just
the switches on them
they break all the time.
Yeah.
But there's some people that do mods on them that put on like unbreakable switches and other, like they'll add more switches so you can just have more presets and stuff on them. And it's a great delay. I went through I think 2 of them and I said, you know what, that's enough. Okay. And then by the time I think I did that Strymon had the timeline by then, so I was just like, all right, you've been good to me, kind of, DL4, but you're going back on the shelf for now. Something new is coming to town. Did you have the DL4 ever, or get to play through one?
I didn't have the DL4, but Jared, my roommate.
Jared.
You know Jared.
Yeah, of course.
Jared, I'm going to have you on soon, too.
Hi, Jared.
Jared had a DL4, so I did get to mess around with it a bunch, and it's fun. It's fun doing little loops and stuff. Actually, my looper of choice right now, lately, is Electro Harmonix 45,000.
Oh yeah, I see it there.
It's great, and so the controller is on my foot pedal, but then I have the brain for it is up here.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, and so it does
can mix the loops.
Yeah, it's 4-track.
That's
looping,
crazy.
So you can just move on to the next track and do the looping with it, and then fade them in and out, and playing them in reverse and octave up, octave down, and really you can do some weird stuff, and it sounds like a tape machine, like slowing up and speeding down the tempo of it. It's good for creating weird sounds as
that's really neat. And it looks like it's got like, does it have like you can save your loops and stuff?
Yeah, so I have there's a little SIM card or whatever, little chip in it. I forget what it's called, but and it saves up to 99 loops, and then I just pop the chip out, and I have another one for like $10.
Yeah,
and it's like I think for me to get to 99 loops takes me a couple months.
Oh, sure.
Couple months, but then I still have all the chips. I keep them in a little box.
Right.
So every once in a while, I'll go through like all my old loops from a couple of years ago, and I'm like, oh, this is cool.
When you said Digitech earlier, and I said Jam Man, because I had a Digitech Jam Man looper probably close to 10 years ago, and I wanted it because it was the first one that I'd kind of heard of that had like the chip card that and you could just call up old loops and stuff like that. But it just had something about the foot switches just kind of irked me, and I felt like I wasn't using it as well as I should. So I sold that. Yeah. So right now I just have like this, what is it? A TC Electronic X2. It's the smaller box with like 2-foot switches, and
Yeah.
not the big gray 4 one.
Mm-hmm.
It's good, but I'm not a hardcore looper really. So
Mm.
I like it though because I mean I guess the DL4 could do this too, but it's just you can half speed everything or reverse it, and it's just good for like the most I've ever really used it for is just like between song, kind of like just
You need filler.
or something, or just like a loop that just plays like one weird kind of that just kind of plays that I don't have to keep in time at
Like
all.
drone note.
Yeah,
type
a little
stuff.
drone note that could kind of just hovers underneath everything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that looks amazing. What's it called? 4500?
The 45,000.
45,000.
Yeah, they made a newer one recently. I think it's before that they had 2,800 or 28,000, and then they just made one last year, and I think it's like the 99,000, and it's got like I think it's 8 tracks or something.
Oh.
And I haven't had a chance to mess around with one, but you can sync them up with each other. You can get more than one and sync them up with each other and do all sorts of crazy stuff.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the never-ending world of looping.
I'm sure you know who well, I'm fucking blanking on his name. Reggie Watts.
Oh yeah, that's actually
That's what I was gonna say. He has some kind of electro harmonics thing, and the DL4.
It
like,
was this,
forever.
and that's what inspired me to buy that.
Oh
yeah.
god, he's amazing.
Shout out to Reggie. I hope
Reggie,
you're watching.
future
Yeah.
podcast guest of Dan's.
I hope so. Love that guy. He's
Yeah.
great. And so I was strongly inspired by his use of it, and he does such creative things. It's just him, a microphone, and he plays all the instruments with his mouth. He's a great beatboxer, and he the first time I saw him in do any stand up or anything like that, he had done one of those things where he speaks for about 5 minutes with like a British
accents.
British accent,
yeah.
and then one with like Middle Eastern, and then one with like a New York accent or something. And at the end of that thing, I didn't know which one was the real him. And that's how good he is. And I was like, wait, so which one was really his like real natural thing? And that's how good. But then also I went on, so I had to watch more from there. And then I went on to watching all the looping things.
He's a fantastic musician, but he's just kind of a fantastic mind.
Very creative.
Like very creative, but also spiritual and just a real deep thinker, and makes everything he says, you're just like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Nailing it.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing, Reggie, you're killing it. Keep it up. Definitely keep it up. So
here we are telling Reggie Watts to keep it up. He's like, yeah, I got this.
Yeah, and I think he's got it under control. He's killing it. Yeah. So pedals, delays. I delays for days. Distortion.
Do you have a distortion of choice that you always keep coming back to?
My one distortion that I keep on like almost all the time is the Monarch, and it's really just, I think it's overdrive.
Yeah, it's a Earthquaker.
Yeah, Earthquaker devices. Shout out to Earthquaker.
Uh-huh.
And it's great. I use it almost as like a compressor. Like I keep the gain pretty far down, and I just have the drive. Just what is it? It's gain, treble, bass, and level.
Yeah.
So I keep the gain pretty far down, so it's not really driving it too much.
Yeah.
I keep the bass kind of high and the treble kind of low, because I know everyone's gonna rip on me for this, but I keep my wah on always.
Oh, right. You're
all
showing
the time.
me that.
I always
you're
keep
the
it
first person I've ever heard of do that.
It's just part of the tone that I use, and I'm sure I'm going to change it up.
Whatever works.
But just lately, the past year or so, I've just always had it on, and I have that kind of mixing the bottom end of it. It just it changes it, and I just like the way it sounds in combination together.
Yeah.
So that's my drive I use all the time. The overdrive, this Dumbloid again.
Yeah.
This is the one that is when I'm doing solos and stuff. This is the one that really pushes it, especially with the wah and a little bit of reverb and delay.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, who can?
I know.
Wah, reverb, delay, a little distortion. Ooh.
You know what? Are you familiar? I'm sure you are. Are you familiar with the infamous pedal called the Klon Centaur?
That sounds familiar. I don't think I've ever played with one.
Okay,
though.
a Klon Centaur was an overdrive pedal that came out I'll give the short story in like the 90s or something, and they went for a reasonable price back then. Maybe a little high back then, the price of them. But soon they just started turning up on like really great guitar players' boards. And so the price, but they were discontinued. Oh. So the price just kind of you'd see them on eBay and Reverb. Initially, you'd see them going for like $500 and you'd be like, oh, that's a lot. And then sooner you'd see them going for $1,000 and you go, wow, that's really a lot. And now they're probably around $2,000 to get it. And it's output, gain, and treble are the only knobs on it. And it's called the Klon Centaur because it's like this gold pedal, or silver sometimes. It's got a little Centaur guy on it, holding like a little.
I know exactly what you're talking of now that you mentioned the guy with the Centaur.
So it was discontinued, and then all these companies just started going, well, that's a highly desired pedal. I want to see if I can clone it. And
like replicas.
Yeah. So, but originally, like the original Circuit, the guy who'd always make it back in the 90s and the early 2000s, he'd cover all the components in this goop, this like black goop, so you couldn't see what it really was, what the pieces were. But somebody somehow reverse engineered it or whatever, and then clones of this pedal started popping up everywhere at a much cheaper price. Mm-hmm. And some of them, and so I was finally able to go, what's all this talk about? What's a Klon? I'd love to try one, but I never got to actually try an actual Klon. Mm-hmm. But everybody was getting into them, and I tried one, and I immediately knew that this pedal was for me. It opened up my Super Reverb. Like it just breathed this new kind of life into it. It sounds good when the gain is cranked, is like up between noon and whatever its fullest extent, like 6 o'clock or whatever, 5 o'clock. Mm-hmm. But I use it the way a lot of other people use it. I have like the treble at noon, the gain at like 9 o'clock. So not much gain at all. And then the output at either noon or more. And really, I'm just controlling the gain of my amp with the volume knob because it's pushing the tubes in my amp to work harder.
So it's like how hard you want to push your amp.
And I don't know what it is. There's just something in there, some component that just touches the right thing with my amp anyway. That just sweetens it. So that's on all the time.
There you go.
And like if I step on it, the amp maybe loses a micro bit of volume, and all of a sudden my amazing Super Reverb sounds slightly not as amazing. But then you step back on the Klon again and you're just like, oh, there it is.
It's just part of the tone.
It's just part of, so like if at the end of the day, give me a guitar, my Super Reverb, a delay pedal, a reverb pedal, and a Klon clone. So right now I've been through a few of them, and some of them were good and some sucked. But the one that I live by now is it's J Rocket Audio is the company, and it's called the Archer.
That same company.
Yeah, the
clone.
The clone that I have, because I don't have $2,000 to spend on a guitar pedal. My wife would kill me if she ever found out. So that's my like always on game.
It all has to do with the combinations. The combination of the pedal and the amplifier, because there's certain, like you play that pedal through a different amplifier, it's going to sound different. Or you play a different pedal through that amplifier, it's going to sound different. And also the guitar. So the guitar, pedal, amplifier combination is just like every guitarist like going down a rabbit hole trying to find their tone.
Yeah.
What guitar are you using with your setup?
I usually go back and forth between. I have a lot of guitars.
Well,
I don't mean that as like a brag. I mean that as in like, let me try to specify what is like my. Right. I go back and forth between my 70s Fender Telecaster Deluxe, which has humbuckers in it, mm-hmm. and then my my Fender Jazzmaster 62 reissue. So that has a single coil in the neck, but it used to have a single coil in the bridge, but I took that out and I put in a wide range humbucker. So it's like both of those guitars now have in the bridges wide range humbuckers. But they both react differently with like that pedal into the Super Reverb, or even without that pedal into the Super Reverb. Mm-hmm. But it's like I can't go wrong. Like I pick it up, and after years and years of being in bands and just trying to get my tone, not really knowing what good tone was. Did you ever go through that when you were younger? Like you were just like, it's just about the playing. Like I don't
still
really know.
Probably
what tone
don't
is.
know. I every time I feel like I know, I look back on it and I realize that I didn't really know as much as I thought I did.
Sure.
So I feel like I know a decent amount now, but I'm sure in a couple of years I probably will look back at this time and be like, I didn't know about this.
I mean, it's all, again, it's all just subjective. What do you like? And, forever, like when I first had that Jazz Master, in my old band, I would play it and I'd always have it on the, when I initially got a Jazz Master, didn't really know what they would sound like in my hands unless I spent a lot of time with it, which I didn't get a chance to until I just got one. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I don't know why, I'd always have it in the bridge pickup, and I'd be playing it through my super reverb, and I'd have, like, my super reverb, like, all the knobs, the EQ knobs would be maybe at, like, noon or something, and I'd play it, and everybody in my band was like, oh, that guitar's so ice-picky. Like, it's just shrill and, like, kind of nasally and hard, and I was like, I could kind of see where they were coming from, but I was like, I tried to convince myself, I was like, no, that's what I kind of like about it. And then I just, over time, I kind of go, oh, that's not full. It's not warm. It's not pleasing. Not that your tone needs to be warm or, pleasing. It can be whatever nasty as you want to be. But it never sat right with me. And then I was just like, well, I've got that Telecaster Deluxe, and I love that wide range humbucker in the neck. Mm-hmm. Well, what if I tried to put an equivalent in this guitar? And I did, and I was just like, oh, well, this is it.
It's all about trying to find your tone. I'll tell you, ever since I got this job, actually, you saw when I first got this.
Yeah,
one.
I remember it came to work.
Yeah, when I ordered it at work. Yeah, you saw the unboxing.
Oh yeah.
And Fender Jaguar HH, and I honestly, I just, it feels so right. I've held, and I've played other Jaguars. I've played other Jazz Masters, and as well as many other guitars, just at Guitar Center, just having fun playing guitars I'll never be able to afford.
Sure.
But this one just feels right.
That's what it's all about.
It feels right, and then it's got a lot of tone options. So it's you still have a lot of freedom. Yeah. And then if I ever start to get bored with that, then I can really just start messing with the different electronics within the guitar itself, and like maybe replace a pickup or add an extra one, or do you can do all sorts.
There's a lot of options on what you can do.
But honestly, I have more than enough. I have more fun diving deeper into the pedals and even just after you record, just tweaking the sounds after that, and not necessarily the mixing stage, but just like I guess it would be considered the mixing stage, but just like the experimental, like adding layers stage, which is usually just like 99% of where I spend my time is just making extra layers and doing other weird stuff and adding too many layers pretty much. And just
there's
getting
no such
with
thing. Well, I mean, there can be, but do you remember the first time you ever recorded something? Maybe that's my question. You recorded something that had like 2 parts on it, and you were probably young. Mm-hmm. Right? So I remember the feeling I had, and I used to do it with my old, not a boombox, but my old stereo had like a 3 CD changer or whatever, maybe not even that, maybe just 1 CD, but it had 2 tape decks in it. So I would record something crappy into the one tape, and then I take that tape and put it into the other deck, and then put a blank tape in that one, and then record over that, and then they'd kind of just blend, and I was just like, whoa!
I beat the system.
I beat the system, and I did that. That's me playing 2 things at once, and they sound good together. Mm-hmm. I was probably like 16, and I was like, this is great.
My experience with that is I would that's more elaborate than my experience. My experience was I had a really shitty tape recorder, and I only had one, and I would use that until I was about probably 16 or 17, and then I think one Christmas my parents got me this Tascam US 122, and I didn't know shit about recording at the time, so I would just plug it into my computer and be like, oh, so I just turn the knob up until you get the. That's how I know I get signal by there being a red light. Yeah. Which is just
is that the clipping?
Clip gain. Yeah. So I would just, everything sounded like shit, and I had no idea what I was doing. And then eventually trial and error.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
finally learned I should turn that down.
Yeah.
I knew absolutely nothing about mixing.
Yeah.
And then a couple years after that, after I kept dropping out of community college, then I ended up going to a Recording Engineer Institute on Long Island. Shout out Recording Engineer Institute. And that's where I learned all the basics of recording.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it ever since. And that was 10 years ago.
Damn.
Been doing it for 10 years. I know
That's
it's
awesome.
crazy. Insane. But now I can't get enough. Here we are doing a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I'm not doing a podcast, I'm either recording music or
You're a
recording
machine.
drummers
Yeah.
or whatever. It's just fun for me. It's just what I do all the time now. Yeah.
Living the dream.
Yeah, we got to work on some stuff together. So you've been on. So is it a hiatus, or are you guys taking a time out?
It's just kind of a hiatus. We're waiting for Mary, our singer, to get back
Cool.
from Seattle, which is looking like it may happen in the next month, but I can't be sure. No promises. So it's
Okay.
kind of just been like a little low-key summer here as far as music's concerned. My old band and I are kind of still going over just old tracks from years ago that we're trying to get together. We almost have like an EP of old stuff that, I mean, I say old stuff like you'd assume it'd be bad, but it's not. We're trying to get this EP together and just try to get some more licensing bucks like we did back in the day.
There you go. That's the way to do it. What's the name of your band?
I always talk about it in the past tense, The Outdoors.
The Outdoors.
Yeah, we put out an EP and toured a little bit back in 10 and 2011 kind of, but we're all friends still. It just kind of like life got in the way and we couldn't quite figure ourselves out at the time, but we've been revisiting stuff, just going, oh yeah, and surprising ourselves, just finding old files and stuff and deep diving and going, whoa, that was pretty cool. How come we never played that song? How come we never finished that one? And now we're just kind of going back through stuff like that. So yeah, that's been happening in bits and pieces, but you know, it's next impossible to get, you know, adults in the same room in this day and age.
I know all
It's
about
just
that.
so
Just trying
hard.
it's just scheduling, trying to get people in the
It's
same room.
impossible.
Yeah.
It's next impossible.
It's not easy. So
Yeah,
what
but-
about Bad in Bed? That's the one that
That's
you're
the one with Mary's our singer, Mary Kobayashi. She's amazing. She and my friend Jeremy kind of started this project after their old band kind of like fell apart. And Jeremy, I've known him for like 20 years. He contacted me and was just like, hey, what do you think about these files? You want to play some guitar? And so I listened to the songs and they were good. Like there was a lot of potential there. And I said, I would like to bring whatever it is that I bring to to bands to this. So I became the guitar player in the band and kind of just it's the easiest band I've ever been in.
That's
it's
awesome.
like there's no real egos or anything. Maybe there's a little ego, but we get along so well, and it's just like almost everything the other person comes up with, we're just like, damn, that's great. We don't need to focus anymore. So there's no bit of going, yeah, why don't you try this? Like we don't tell each other what to do. We make suggestions,
Sure.
but it's been so easy, and maybe it's just age has kind of told us we don't want to go through the childish little stuff.
Well, maybe experience. I mean, going through some bands that were
Yeah.
kind of a pain in the butt, and like
Yeah.
maybe realizing that like certain things just aren't worth stressing over, and
Yeah.
the things that end up turning out the best are the ones where people are just go into it with an open mind, and like you let the people play with the parts that they're going to come up with
Yeah, at
creatively.
this point you just go, I used to sweat the small stuff
Mhm.
like nobody's business. Every little thing was just, and you know, I mean, this is years ago, but I was just, you know, I was one of those people that was just like, even though our music wasn't punk at all, I had this like punk ethos that I was just like, we would never allow our songs to appear on these things. We would never sign up for that. We would never play that show. We would never play that venue. Fuck that band. Like, and now I'm just like, what was the point of any of that negativity and angst? And just like, just have fun, work together, be kind. You know, it's not that hard.
It's more fun that you find out that, you know, like it's just more fun. It's more fun when you just like more doors are open, when you're just like friendly and have fun, and you just want to like make things together and give people room to express their creativity. Because if you tell them specifically what to do, you're going to stifle them in some way,
Yeah.
and they're going to need to have other side projects for their outlet.
Sure. I mean,
It's gonna need to
I've
happen.
been parts of in bands before where they, if it's somebody's kind of like passion project or something,
Mhm.
and they're like, Gary, come in and do that Gary thing to my song. I'm like, great. Does that mean I have kind of free reign to do whatever I want? And then I show up and I'm like, I start playing, and then they're just like, yeah, why don't you play this? And I'm just like, well, why don't you just tell me that to begin with? Or you obviously know what you want.
You said do
Like,
my Gary thing.
yeah,
That's
so
not
I'm
my
just-
Gary
It's
thing.
not like my Gary thing is not doing your thing. It's just
Yeah.
you do your thing, and but so and it's just like, if it's gonna be some kind of, it's not fun when you're told what to do.
I agree.
And you're just
I
like,
agree. Well, when you have more freedom for creative expression, then you feel like you have a little bit more of like a piece of your heart in that song.
Yeah, and if not, what's the point?
Yeah. Well,
Money.
Yeah, money.
if money's on the table, then maybe I can put my heart aside.
yeah.
So if anybody wants me to put my heart aside, the bidding starts at a surprisingly low number.
Well, I love your guitar tone, and I love your expression. And when the few times that we did jam together, it was some really awesome stuff. Every once in a while, I go digging through old stuff, and I listen to some of the things we did, and it's like, oh man, it's I like how it filled in, because at the time I think I was playing keys, and I was using like shitty plugins and stuff for the keys. I was using a MIDI controller. And the way that your guitar blended in, you would work the delays and the reverb and everything just right to blend in just right in with the keys. And
That's
what I noticed about the way that you play is that you pay much closer attention to what everybody else is playing than most other guitarists that are just trying to shred over.
That's
other
very
people.
kind of you to say. That it took me a while to get there. I'll admit that. Yeah.
It's what's really interesting is you see people's personality in the way that they play their instrument, and you are a considerate person.
Oh, thank
you. The way that you play is very like you're listening to what other people are playing, and you're trying to complement it in a certain way, or you're trying to make something that we are together trying to do. We're not other guitarists that I played with, not all obviously, but there's some that I played with that are. They want you to play something so they can just constantly shred over the top of it because soloing on guitar is fun, but it's just, like it's just trying to show the peak of your technical ability instead of trying to sound good as a whole as a band.
Yeah.
They're really just trying to show off themselves, and it's like that's more of a egocentric way of going. About it.
That's very kind of you to say, but I mean, I will admit it. Even I do feel like I do listen really well, but also, I mean, there's moments where I'm kind of just like in my own head, just go, what am I doing?
There's moments where it calls for it.
Yeah.
If the music calls for it, you got to take the limelight, man. Hey, there's guitar solos there for a reason. And it's in not every, but most amazing songs have some kinds of solos or guitar solos or whatever, and they're there because there's magic in it, man. There's magic in it when you put the nice like undertones and like there's beautiful harmonies, and you can just gives you a lot of room.
There's nothing like playing live, especially in front of people, and you can kind of, it sounds so cliche, but it'll never happen for me for an entire set, but there'll be moments where you're completely in it. You're completely in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean like you're completely in it. I mean like you're completely in it. Like you forget everything except you don't know what your left hand's doing. You don't know what your right hand's doing. You don't know
instinct.
Your eyes are closed and you're surrounded and enveloped in the sound, and you're just, oh God, it sounds so cheesy. You're just like one with it.
No, it's true. There's been a few occasions that I know exactly what you're talking about, and it's definitely true. And there's what I love about it, and you mentioned too, is that in live, when it's a live show and there's other people in the room, they're part of it too, and it's part of like this experience that's only happening once. You can play that song again, it's not going to be the same. It's never the same. Even if you play it note for note, it's never, the energy is never quite the same. The feedback from the people is a different thing, and that's one thing I loved about when like there's tons of old people that I could give examples, but one would be Janis Joplin, is that when she would play, she would really, really, really feed off of the crowd. And it was she would always just be like pouring her heart out, like looking in the eyes of the people, like trying to get some feedback out of the crowd, and it really affects the way that she plays. And as a musician, I'm sure you've experienced that to an extent too. Like when you're playing in front of people, like there's a little bit of like, oh, the crowd is really digging this part, and then it like makes you play a little differently. Yeah. Or if they're not digging it, you're like, oh, I got to focus and get through this or whatever it is. Yeah. But there is some kind of feedback there that's going on between the musician and the crowd. Yeah. The crowd thinks they're there really just observing, but they really are quite a bit part of the actual experience and part of the performance itself.
Yeah. It's strange. I love playing live. I'm nervous before every show.
Oh, I've never played a show without being nervous.
And
but
even if nobody's there.
Even if nobody's there. But I have noticed that anytime I'm particularly nervous about a show, it's the more nervous I am, it's because of lack of rehearsing. If I'm nervous about a show that I know that I'm gonna have in a month or two, I'm like, okay, let's strap down, guys. Like let's. And if you rehearse like a few times a week before that, you're like, before the show comes, like you still have nerves before the show, always before every show, but you feel so much more prepared that you're just like, oh, okay, well, even if I mess up, it's the muscle memory is there so much that it's just instinctual, and you really just like, even if you slip up, you're going to catch it so quick that no one's even going to notice that you missed a note.
Having said that, though, after the show's over, I don't know what kind of band you've been in, but my band, we go backstage, and it's literally the first things we say to each other. A lot of the times they're like, oh my God, sorry about what I did on this part. I fucked up on this part. And everybody, even in your own band, we're just like, oh, I didn't notice. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. Unless you mess up really hard.
I mean, that's never really happened.
And even that, it's like, like even if you mess up really hard, I wouldn't even mind saying right into the microphone, oh, sorry, I fucked up. Because you just own it. Just own it and get past it. Try not to mess up.
I saw this one band. This is horrible. It's not horrible, but the guy couldn't tune his guitar or something. He was trying to tune it between songs, and he just kept talking, going, sorry, I'm having a lot of trouble tuning my guitar.
That's the worst.
I don't know why it's not. And he's just walking you through every little bit of trouble he's having. And it probably lasted 3 minutes at most, but those 3 minutes to it when you're a crowd and you're trying to watch the show.
Excruciating.
I was just like, I felt bad for him, but then also I was just like, you're really handling this poorly, and just like, well, again, don't put a microphone in front of me on a stage. I'll probably just say equally stupid shit.
For me, one thing I did with our band, Dream Clinic, is as far as that goes, like live performance and tuning and things like that, is I made it a point for us, and everybody agreed, obviously it wasn't just my decision, but when you're seeing a live performance, there's so much, like, whenever there's downtime in between a song, it better be quick. If there's silence at the end of a song, you should give that crowd 5, 10, maybe 15 seconds to applaud or whatever. But if you give once the applause dies down, you should be starting the next song, or you should be saying something to the crowd. There shouldn't be a lot of dead time. And if you have to stop and tune for 3 minutes, that's a whole other story. But I found that the best performances are like when you prepare so well that you can get right into that next song, or not have any downtime and blend one song into the other. If you rehearse that, we've done that a bunch of times, and I tell you, dude, it changes the whole thing. And if you don't allow the crowd time to applaud in between songs, and you do 2 or 3 songs in a row, then when you do stop playing, they go nuts.
Oh yeah.
And it's a whole different thing. And I prefer doing that. It's way more fun. Yeah. I would like to at some point make an entire set without stopping. Wow. And because then at the end it's like, okay, peace out, we're done. And then you know
what's funny? You and I are big Radiohead fans.
Yes, sir.
That is a band, though. They pull it off because I think the audience is just like, it's fucking Radiohead.
They can do whatever they want.
Yeah, they can do whatever they want. The rules don't apply to them that apply to everyone else.
Nope.
But every song, everybody changes their instruments.
Yes.
Their techs are coming out with the guitars. There's downtime between every song.
There has to be, though. There kind of has to be for them to be doing as much as they are for a live performance.
Yeah.
Unless they're like, okay, we're going to play this one album straight through.
You're right.
And then where they all have... they can't even do that because even in one album, they switch up so much.
Yeah.
I love those the basement sessions.
Those are great.
They're my favorite. There's the one, not the King of Limbs one. I mean, they're both great, but the In Rainbows one.
Yeah.
I've watched that one probably over 100 times.
Oh, yeah. I think I've probably watched that one over 100 times, too.
It's so great. And their performances are
the King of Limb ones is really interesting because a lot of those... I think it's a really good album, and I really like it a lot. Mm-hmm. But... And I know I can't imagine it's anybody's favorite Radiohead album, but I'm sure it is some people's. But their Live from the Basement one of those songs kind of just made you go, oh, yeah, that is an awesome song.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what it is. Something was a missed opportunity in the studio version for me, maybe. But then you hear it live and you're just like, oh, there's the energy.
For that one I agree 100%. And the one song that did it for me was The Daily Mail.
Oh yeah.
Because I didn't know that song really before that.
Yeah, some B-side from the album.
I don't even think it was on the King of Limbs or it was on. It was on a B-side or something. Yeah. But their performance on that and the basement sessions was like.
Do they have like horns and stuff on that?
Yeah, full horns, and it starts out all soft and melodic, and it's just him and the piano, and he's talking real close to the microphone, and it's just this beautiful thing of just him and the piano. And then it gets heavy as fuck. And it's just when the horns come in and stuff. It's so good.
Yeah, you're right. In particular, like that song, like the studio version of it, it didn't really, I was just like, oh, I can see why it's a B-side, you know?
Yeah.
But then that
one
basement
performance.
Was like, damn.
Oh man, that was another level.
Yeah. I'm a total dork fanboy for them.
Me too. Well, I'd say my top bands are probably Radiohead, Mars Volta, and then of course the million other bands that everybody else picks. Led Zeppelin, Beatles, and Pink Floyd, and all the other great ones. But
who are you listening to? Any new bands you like a lot right now that you want to?
I've been on. I've gone on a couple of rabbit holes down like kind of like surf. I don't want to say surf, but like kind of like surf punk or whatever. I'd say, but also like sounds like it could have been like you listen to it and it sounds like it could be older. A couple that stand out are La Luz, which I think is. I think it's all girls. L-A and then L-U-Z. Yeah. La Luz is the name of the band, and they're great. They're like they're awesome, like surf rock.
Yeah.
And then the Mystic Braves.
Oh, cool.
Are another one that stands out to me, and then Tijuana Panthers are.
I've heard of all these bands, but I haven't actually heard them. Yeah.
They're great. You should listen to them.
Is it kind of like what do I want to say? Is it like surf but with elements of like rockabilly or something, or like psychobilly or anything like
I'd say it's a little bit more
pompadours and stuff like that.
Well, they're all a little bit different. The three bands are all a little bit different, but I'd say they're all in like a surf rock vibe, but Tijuana Panthers is a little bit more punk rock, and what I like about them is they sound like they could be from I don't even know what time period, but from like they sound like they could be older recordings, but they are very much more recent recordings.
Oh, that's cool.
What about you? Any particular bands that you've been listening to?
My favorite band of the past year has been this band of like just total Canadian dorks. I say that nicely and kindly. They're called Always, but it's spelled Alvvays. I'm sure for Googling reasons. Like the two V's make a W, it makes it look like a W, but it's pronounced Always and not Always.
I think I've seen that somewhere.
I'm a big fan of like, it'd probably be derisively called like jangle rock. Where there are lots of chiming arpeggios and stuff like, older REM, the Smiths, Johnny Marr's guitar playing, I'm sure is a huge influence on their guitar player. But the songwriting is so tight, and their chief singer and songwriter, her name's Molly Rankin. She just writes these earworm melodies that are just, I can't get them out of, they're perfect. They're perfect. And her lyrics are so smart and witty and clever, and also can be just heartbreaking too. So they kind of have this lineage back to a lot of British bands. You can tell that they love the Smiths, they love Teenage Fan Club, they love the Jesus and Mary Chain. All those influences just kind of come out. They just put out about a year ago their second album. It's called Anti-Socialites, and they had a previous record probably 4 years ago that's just like a self-titled one. That's a little more lo-fi, but the songwriting's great on that one as well. But I don't know what it is. I am a sucker for like that style of music, but also I'm just a sucker for, I don't know what it is, and I hope this doesn't sound like weird or sexist anyway. I have a soft spot for like really great singers and songwriters, but like I like a lot of female fronted bands and female like singers. It's not sexist. I know
it's
it's
the
not
opposite of sexist.
I know, but I don't know what that draw is to me. Why that is.
The female voice is got a higher register, and some of the best singers in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, well, you can't discriminate men or women, but
Right.
but I mean, I feel the same way about female singers too. It's especially like when there's a female singer and just the way their voices blend over the music. Sometimes it just calls for it.
Yeah.
I think that might be one of the reasons why I like La Luz so much, is because I think it's all girl. I think the whole band is girls. I gotta look deeper into that. But I know that there's a female singer, and they're great. And I love all the songs. It's very much like a punk rock, surf rock type of thing to it. And
That's cool.
yeah, that's just, I don't know, those. And for me lately has been you mentioned like the chimey thing for you, and for me it's been, I like surf rock guitar and beats and like bass and rhythm and everything, and then the organ, like the organ coming in there. In Mystic Braves, they have like organ and keys in there, and it gives it this sound that's older surf rock style to it, but it feels right. Just having that organ layer in there really gives the whole sound of the band like that specific.
Like it's a legit like older organ sound.
I haven't looked deep into the actual
or like
creation
an
of it,
or whatever.
but yeah, it sounds like a real organ. It sounds like a real, and
awesome.
and it sounds great.
Yeah,
it sounds awesome, especially with that type of music.
Yeah.
I feel like it fits it very well, and I need to expand more. Aside from that one little rabbit hole of surf rock music,
Sure.
Have you listened to? Oh, now I'm gonna blank. Now that I'm trying to bring it up, but Yusuf Days. I always say it wrong. It's Yusuf.
Yusuf? Is it like a Muslim name?
Yeah. Yusuf, Dayes. He's a phenomenal drummer, and they have a jazzy R&B sound.
Okay.
But he does a project called Yusuf Kamal is the one project. I think it's called Black Thought, and that one came out like a year or two ago. And then they have a more recent one that Yusuf just put out that he recorded at Abbey Road Studios. It's a live video. It's like 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
And it's a one camera take, and it's phenomenal. These all the musicians are just like top of their game.
That's awesome.
And I think it was Yusuf and Alpha Mist.
Okay.
Alpha Mist is the other guys that are in it, I believe.
Right.
But you got to check it out. And
cool.
it's so good. They're very, very good musicians, and it's very jazzy and funky, but also like it starts off real mellow and smooth and not a lot going on, but they do it on purpose because it leaves a lot of room to build.
Yeah.
And then they just shred. All of them are just shred.
Oh,
and they're
nice.
Phenomenal. So good. Sorry to go on about
no. Oh, but you got me thinking. This is my one little brag story that I'd love to tell.
Oh, lay it on me. Lay it on me, Gary.
My wife, about, It was probably like 8 years ago.
Or you're married. That's your big brag story?
Oh,
Your wife.
God.
Your wife.
I don't recommend it. No, I'm kidding. It's great. No, we went to England, and she works at DreamWorks, and through her boss, we were able to get a private tour of Abbey Road, which is not open to the public.
No.
So we got to go in there, and the woman who took us around was super sweet. We walked into one of the studios, Studio One, I think, and there were two guys in there, and we got to meet like the engineer and the producer on something. They were like, "You want to hear what Sting was just recording yesterday, right where you're standing?" And we got to hear some unreleased like Sting, his voice, and we were just like, "Damn, it sounds amazing!"
Holy shit! That's
so
amazing.
we got to go around, and then she took us into Studio Two, which is the famous Beatles one.
Mm-hmm.
And she pointed to this upright in the corner. I wish I could remember the brand or whatever it was.
Steinway or
I don't know. It was an upright of some kind. And she's like, "That's the piano that Paul recorded Lady Madonna on." So I was like, "Can I touch it?" And she was like, "Yeah, go for it." So I got to sit there and play this amazing piece of history right in front of me, going, my dirty fingers are touching right where Paul's fingers were.
That's incredible.
Then I kind of just went, clink, 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 because I can't really play well. And then I just went, Lady Madonna. Blim, 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 blim. It was rad.
That is so cool,
and
man.
so, we got some cool pictures out of it, and we were given a nice free T-shirt and a coffee mug that say Abbey Road on them. So
that's phenomenal.
Yeah, I feel very privileged and very lucky to have gotten in there just through chance.
Hell yeah. That's really cool.
We were walking out of there, and this other couple was walking out, and they were going, "Oh, we could just walk right in there." Like, no, we actually we know somebody in there. Like,
VIP tag.
Yeah,
sorry.
VIP.
It
was really special, and I feel very privileged that I was able to do that.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's a once in a lifetime opportunity, and especially for a musician, and to have. I mean, I'm sure other people look at it and just in like a very cool way too. But like being a musician, and being in those rooms, or like.
But it would have been sweeter if I was getting to record in there.
True story. Yeah. Hey, dude, maybe someday. You never know. You never know what's gonna happen, man. Yeah, I would like to check it out someday. I'd been to London before, but I think I breezed past that. I don't know if I was in the area. I was only there for a day, and we didn't really get a lot of time to check out. But I did see a lot of Beatles-esque stuff and different little areas that are like, oh, this is where things happen, And but I got to go back someday.
Oh yeah.
I got to go back.
We did the little crosswalk thing there.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
You got it. That's one of the things you got to do.
You kind of have to do it. Yeah.
Abbey Road. You got it. That's the one photo op you got to have.
Yeah. I mean, it was the only reason we were in that part of town. St. John's Wood is the name of the neighborhood it's in. I can't imagine what it costs to live there. All these amazing homes there. But I felt very lucky to be in that room with a lot of really cool ghosts.
Yeah, cool, that's the interesting part too. Is you're at a place where such music was made, and it's not just the Beatles. It's such throughout the course of the years. It makes you wonder about. I don't know to get all weird and mystical about it, but like certain places feel like they got a different energy to it or something. Like especially after. So many people have been there. You can just go in there in that room and like you're saying, look at that piano. Yeah, Paul McCartney played that piano, but who else played that piano? That's the one that that stands out. That's the story they tell. It's like, Paul McCartney played this piano. He wrote Lady Madonna on this. Yeah, but like it's not just him. Who else wrote songs on that piano, and who else played with it? It's like so many other people that I'm sure the list is probably almost endless. Like they would just keep going down and down and be like,
And did some of that magic seep through the skin of my calloused fingertips and get into my blood somehow?
You're breathing the same air. You went into that room. You take a deep breath.
Oh yeah.
You take a deep breath.
It smelled vaguely of 1960s marijuana.
Yeah. The good stuff.
Yeah, it was probably much weaker
back
then, to be honest. Probably just smoked a lot more of it.
Dirt. Probably a lot like mine grown in the dirt over there. Grown it. Yeah. Shout out. Yeah. Shout out to my weed grown in the corner over there, the one plant I have.
Nice to meet you, weed.
Yeah. So what do you say, Gary? You want to wrap this up?
I think we talked about a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of you. This is a great project you got going on.
Thanks, man.
Happy to be a part of it. Yeah.
Oh, dude, thank you so much for being on here.
My pleasure. Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Any do you want to give your Instagram or anything like that in case anybody wants to follow you or your bands or anything?
No.
Okay, good. Okay, fair enough. All right. Thanks, everybody.